All right, man. So we got some pretty huge news for Kamala Harris in the state of Florida. Now, I consider Florida to be a faux swing state. It's kind of considered to be in play, but it probably is a little bit out of reach. However, there is a pretty large community that can potentially really turn out for Kamala Harris in the state of Florida. Now, as you guys recall, in the debate against Kamala Harris, Donald Trump basically says, oh, the immigrants, referring to Haitian immigrants in Springfield, Ohio, they're eating pets, cats, and dogs, all this stuff. Even like the photo that was going around of like the dude who was carrying, I think, like the head or something of some like animal. It was like roadkill that he was moving out of the way. So a lot of crazy stuff happening. And so there's essentially like, it's almost like terrorism at this point, because schools had to be shut down. They had to go online. Hospitals had to lock down due to bomb threats. It was complete insanity. So just terrorizing communities of Haitians and just making them look like they're these horrible humans, right? Unfathomable, crazy, crazy stuff. JD Vance also coming out and saying, he says, yeah, it's a lie, but he's basically saying the ends justify the means. That's what he was basically saying. So Haitians understandably are pretty angry, and so we have this article here. It says, big mistake, South Florida Haitians slam Trump's false claim about immigrants eating pets. So a lot of these Florida Haitians, we did a video on this prior. In that video, you saw a New York Haitian community leader who was going off and losing it. Now we actually have some Haitian organization that's happening in the state of Florida. This is where they're actually most at, and we'll go over kind of the population numbers and everything. But go ahead and check out this local report that's going to break all this down, because what we can see is there is this large kind of community organizing and protesting against Donald Trump's lies and just straight slander. Check it out.
And right now, members of the Haitian community rallying in North Miami today against those false accusations that Haitian migrants were abducting and eating pets in Ohio. Local 10's Samir Nefsi is joining us live right now in North Miami with more on their efforts out there. Samir.
JC, so we had a chance to speak to many attending this event earlier today, and they just talked about how much damage this caused the Haitian community, and they say this is an issue that they will take to the voting with them.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats.
It's that false accusation from the presidential debate igniting North Miami's Haitian community.
Well, I thought it was absolutely reflective of the idiot that he is.
The Miami-Dade Democratic Haitian Caucus hosting the political event, setting the record straight.
The narrative that they're trying to portray us is not so. We are educators, we are elected officials, we are lawyers, we are doctors.
The baseless accusation gained traction when Republican vice presidential nominee and U.S. Senator JD Vance commented Haitian migrants in Springfield, Ohio were abducting and eating pets. The Republican VP candidate was questioned on it by CNN.
If I have to,
But it wasn't just a meme,
create stories so that the American media actually pays attention to the suffering of the American people, then that's what I'm going to do.
You just said that this is a story that you
Yes.
created. So the eating dogs and cats thing is not
We are
accurate.
creating, Dana, it comes from firsthand accounts from my constituents. I say that we're creating a story, meaning we're creating the American media focusing on it.
There was no retraction issued by the candidate.
JD Vance and former President Donald Trump must stop the rhetoric that they're doing. But whether or not they stop, this community is standing nationwide, but particularly today in North Miami, in solidarity with the immigrant community, and said enough is enough.
All right, and we know the governor of Ohio, as well as local leaders, have denounced the rhetoric that former President Trump and VP nomination for the Republican Party, JD Vance, have made. That's the very latest from North Miami. I'm Samir Nafsi, Local 10 News.
Right, and so as you guys were able to see in that video, the Haitian community members are really, really angry, and different emotions play differently actually in politics, and apparently there's like anger gaps in terms of like different races and stuff, which is something interesting you can personally delve into if you want. But, this kind of movement could be something big for Kamala Harris. Now, I know what you might be thinking. You might be thinking, oh, well, hey, don't Haitians already vote Democratic, so it's probably not going to do much. There's two ways to be able to increase your vote share. One of them is to actually convert someone who would vote the other party in your favor. Highly, highly difficult to do. Very, very unlikely to ever happen. Okay, rarely ever happens. Two is to increase the voter turnout of a group that already supports you. So, for example, amongst Black Americans, right, an African American vote already significantly goes in favor of the Democrats. So we saw when we were playing around with the North Carolina numbers in the Cook Political Report modeling, we saw that if Kamala Harris were to just boost up, like if Biden in 2020, instead of having 66% of turnout amongst Black Americans, it was 72, he would have won the election because the margin was so massive. It was like 92-8 in favor of Biden. So you might be thinking, oh, well, they probably already vote Democratic. But what you're not understanding is you can get a significant amount of votes out by increasing voter turnout. Also, there is a possibility that you might be able to get some of those Haitians who might have been voting Trump or some of those kinds of people to your fray once they kind of see the direct targeting and all this stuff that's happening. So it could be a double whammy. It's pretty massive. And so you could see this kind of organization that's happening. And we can look here at the population numbers. So this is the largest Haitian populations in the state, United States. So was according to a 2022 census estimate, there were 1,138,855 Haitian Americans living in the United States. The 10 U.S. states with the largest populations of Haitian ancestry in 2022 were, so Florida is number one. They make up 2.4% of the state population, which is not nothing. There's 544,000, so presumably there's probably somewhere around 250 to 300, maybe 330,000 actual voters. New York is number two with 176,287. Massachusetts, 77,000 with about 1.1% of their state population. New Jersey. New York, Massachusetts, and New Jersey, obviously not important because they're not swing states. However, Georgia's pretty interesting. So Georgia, they only make up 0.5%, but Georgia's going to be decided in the margins. Biden won it by, I think, like less than 12,000 votes. So if you have 61,575, again, approximating probably somewhere between 30 and 40K of that 61.5 is actually voting age, dude, that could flip the election for you in a state like Georgia if you get high enough turnout and you get a high enough margin. It is possible in that state, so Georgia could be helpful. Pennsylvania, less so. They're 0.1%, but who knows? Maybe they do something. So Florida is obviously going to be the biggest impact state. Georgia, though, I would say is a second, especially because of how close the margin is. Unfathomable, right? And then Pennsylvania, you know, maybe, but this is probably really, really small. Not only are they only 0.1% of the Pennsylvania state population, but with 21,000 total population, your total voting populace is probably 10 to 15K max. But what we can see is what really weird happened back in 2020 actually was there was something really weird happening in Miami-Dade County, the very typical Republicans or Democrat district. So we could see here back in the 2016 election results, we can look at the Miami-Dade numbers. Pretty solid margins, about 2-1 for Clinton. She goes 63.7 to 34.1 against Donald Trump. That's 624,146 votes compared to 333,999, so 333,999 votes. So what's super interesting about this actually is something really weird happens in Miami-Dade. There's a really large regression, but it might not be in the way that you think, though, because you might think, oh, well, there must have been a bunch of people who like voted for, Clinton who reneged. But really what it looks like ended up happening is in the Miami-Dade numbers here, what we can see is Biden still gets basically the same vote count overall, 617,864, but Trump ends up getting 532,000, almost 533,000, 53.4 to 46.1, which is complete garbage, okay? Complete garbage. So what I think happened is there were a lot of Cubans who actually stayed out of the election in 2016 who actually came out to vote in 2020. So if you're Kamala Harris, you're trying to get your margins as close as possible in Florida, Biden loses by about, like 3.3%. If you want to bring the margins closer, not only do you want to turn people out for you, but how do you get those Cubanos to stay home? How do you convince those Cubanos who stayed out in 2016 and came out in 2020, just get them to stay home? You didn't even have to convert them in your favor. But if you can just kind of paint a negative enough image of Donald Trump in their minds, that would be what happens. And I think there was like a 12-point surge amongst Hispanics in the state, and then the drop-off from Clinton was nowhere close to that amount, so it definitely wasn't injective. It wasn't like, oh, Biden drops 14 and Trump goes up 14. It was like, no, Biden dropped maybe, I forgot how much it was, a couple points, 5 points maybe, and then he just shoots up. So I think what ended up happening is, or I don't even know if it's debatable, but a bunch of like Hispanics came out to vote for Trump in 2020 that didn't in 2016. Why is that? We don't really know. It's kind of confusing. But so where are the Haitians located, right? So the census data tells us where exactly, the biggest estimated population distribution is. So it says Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach are the top 3 counties where people of Haitian ancestry live in Florida. So we got County 1, Miami-Dade. Estimated population distribution, 21%. So you got the municipalities here, North Miami Beach, Miami Gardens, etc. Broward, 17%. Palm Beach, 10%. Those are all these like South Florida areas that are blue. And I'm not sure if like these ones had like as large of a sort of issue. It doesn't look like Broward had the same level. Broward or Palm Beach had the same level. So something weird happened specifically in Miami-Dade where like 200,000 new, I don't know if it was like Cubanos or, a bunch of Hispanics came out to vote for Trump over him. I think Hillary did a lot better with the Hispanic vote than Biden did, actually. I think Biden was weak with Hispanic voters. So can Kamala Harris make some gains on that? But if you can boost out the voter turnout numbers, that will increase your vote share guaranteed. So if, these Haitian voters who are very angry, justifiably so, are contacting their family members, they're sharing stuff on social media, they're calling their grandma, they're like, nephew who just graduated college or who just got to college who's now voting age, just increasing the voter share is enough to be able to make a mark. So if you could do a wombo combo of those two things, convince the Cubanos who came out to vote in 2020, who stayed out in 2016, get them to stay home, and you can get some Haitian boost that can give you a lot of numbers. Now, ultimately, I think Florida is not going to flip blue this time around. However, the closer you can get it, I would say the better, unless you believe that it's kind of a trap that's never going to be won back. But instead of losing by 3.3, can you lose by less than 1, some real number like A epsilon R, where, A is, less than 1, you know what I mean? So are you able to get to that point, right? Are you able to get to that position? And so looks like the Florida poll is kind of saying like plus 4.4 is where the margins are right now. But what you can see is Trump is kind of barely hitting 50 in a lot of these polls. So he probably won't overperform that much. Another thing also is that a lot of the polls are actually, I think, overcompensating for them being wrong last time around in 2020. So they're making their sample sizes heavily Republican. So there's going to be a lot of overperformance factors for Kamala Harris. It's going to be insane. But you can see, Kamala Harris is polling low at 44, 47, 45. So either A, they're missing her vote, or B, she hasn't convinced them yet, and she will by the time the election comes around, like with the convergence theorem. So I think she'll end up hopefully getting close, but it probably won't be enough to flip the state overall. But hopefully it will end up making it close. But this kind of thing, and then, the Trump campaign has been sort of alienating a bunch of different groups, women voters, childless people, a ton of different groups, so, biracial people. So many of these groups, at some point, I feel like this series of all those terms added up together, the underlying sequence, it really needs to get large enough to the point where Donald Trump loses the election. But there's some interesting news out of the state of Florida, and only time will tell how much of an impact the Haitian immigrant vote will have on this election.